Welcome to Taking the Higher Road, a special show dedicated to the trucking industry, specifically at the confluence of recruiting, retention, and compliance. In the fourth year as the host of this show, I bring over 2 decades of industry experience, both on the carrier side as well as the vendor side. And each week I interview industry experts and thought leaders who bring their insight to the driver lifecycle as we discuss the industry's greatest challenges. I always appreciate your feedback, good or bad. Don't forget to leave a rating and review. I'd also like to thank and highlight the show's valuable sponsors. Their dedication and commitment to the industry and to the show is greatly appreciated. And if you're interested in being a sponsor of Taking the Higher Road or joining me for an interview, please email jeremy@takingthehigherroad.com. This week, I'm honored to be joined by an award-winning, innovative trucking industry leader who I have a ton of respect for, Ben Schill, CEO of Paper Transport just outside of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Great to have you on the show, Ben.
Hey, Jeremy. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, likewise. I'd love to get into your background, what got you into the trucking industry. Perhaps you can share a bit about Paper Transport and some of the innovative and progressive things that you're doing that have led to some significant recognition over the years, including being named 2023 Business Person of the Year and a CCJ Innovator Award a few years earlier. I'd love to hear your philosophy on leadership, culture, and the desire just to build a great place to work. And lastly, we'll answer a question from a listener during our deeper dive segment. Does that work for you?
That sounds great. Let's get after it.
Sweet. Well, as is the custom, I start every conversation with a book recommendation. Is there anything that you can share with the audience that you've read that's been impactful?
Sure. I'll actually share a book that I'm about 3/4 through right now, over the last couple of weeks, and it's called Great CEOs Are Lazy, and that's by Jim Schlexer. I think I'm saying that correctly. And, it's an easy read and it's pretty cool. And the title's a little bit misleading because it talks about great CEOs, and it's really should be titled, I think, just great leaders, because you don't have to be in the CEO chair to take these concepts that he talks about. But what really struck me, and I've been in the CEO role for 2 years now, is the main concept of you get so much more done when you collapse around that one constraint in front of you that's keeping your company from being great, or from keeping you from where you want to be. So, in my perspective, again, it's not just about the CEO role, but whether you have 7 direct reports, 9 direct reports, you can't lead by trying to give everybody the same amount of attention and every functional area the same amount of attention. But you really have to collapse around, hey, what is it right now? What's the biggest constraint for your business? And focus intensely on that. And in the end, if you continue to do that, you're going to see significant results for your company.
Awesome. So great CEOs are lazy. I'll make sure that that's reflected in our promotions going forward, because I've not read it. I will add it to Goodreads, and it's something that as a former CEO myself, I think that that's probably something that's up my alley. So I really appreciate that, and hopefully for the audience as well. As you said, leaders in general, it's not necessarily just for a CEO, but I appreciate that. Let's talk about you. Who is Ben Schill, and how did your path lead you to the trucking industry?
Yeah, certainly. I'll just start by saying, I love this industry. I love the people and just the grit that's involved in on the trucking side. And you meet so many people that were born into trucking, and their dad ran the trucking company, and their grandfather started it. And, so many leaders in this industry kind of grew up in the industry. And the reality is my grandfather hauled milk, 80 years ago. But I didn't necessarily grow up in the trucking industry. So it wasn't necessarily in my blood until I actually got into the industry. And it was really my first job out of college. So I worked with a very large carrier, my first job out of school, and it was just a fantastic opportunity. A lot of respect for the carrier. And I really developed I don't want to say a soft spot, but I worked with drivers most of my career, and I've always been just blown away with how hard they work. And you talk about a professional job that's any more American than a professional truck driver. It's hard to find one. I mean, they are so American. The grit and the grind and what they go through on a daily basis to deliver America every day is pretty awesome. So from the very beginning, I thought I'd be in New York City and Wall Street doing something much different than what I'm doing. And I realized, just being grounded in this industry is humbling, and it's a lot of fun.
A lot of stuff that you shared, talking about the grit, talking about the American job. I think it's so on point. And I think when people take a step back and think about the industry, those who are in it like us, I think you recognize that. It's sadly, I think too many of the outsiders don't maybe appreciate how special, how important this industry is. And I know that there is a question I have a little bit later in this conversation, kind of specifically about the industry in general and how inclusive it is and the relationships that you build in it. But as the CEO, now, as you said, for 2 years of paper transport, PTI, could you share a little background about PTI? When was it founded? Maybe fleet size, little about the mission and culture of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So the company was founded 34 years ago this month, actually. So we just had our 34th anniversary, and like most trucking companies, you start out with a couple of trucks, a couple of gritty founders, and they got the company off the ground and grew a lot with one customer in the beginning. But where we ended up now from, starting out with 5 trucks 34 years ago, we're over 1,000 employees. We're about a $300 million company. And, really what hasn't changed from day one is our purpose. And quite simply, our purpose is to build a great place to work. And everything that we put into the company surrounds that purpose. This is cliche, but this truly is a people business. And it's about relationships. Specifically, it's about relationships with your employees and your professional drivers. So we've grown for the last 34 years significantly, and it really has all been kind of embedded of our culture and our one purpose of building a great place to work.
Well, and first of all, that's great. And because that's sort of a purpose that transcends, it's not just to make money, as you mentioned, New York and, stock exchange, that sort of mindset, but instead you build a great place to work and trust that if you do that, you're going to perform and outperform probably most of your peers who don't have that same mindset. I believe in that. I trust in that concept and that premise.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's just so much more rewarding when you're really thinking about the over 1,000 employees that are part of this business and improving their lives by building a great place to work. If they come to work every day and they enjoy what they're doing and the company's taking care of them, that's going to be reflected in their own life, and their family life is going to be better. Their community life is going to be better. So, embedding yourself in that purpose it's been paramount for us, whether we talk about it or whether it's just inherent of how we operate, but it's certainly been the cornerstone, and it's the reason I love this company.
Yeah, and you've got such a broad diversity of leadership experience there, operations, maintenance, safety, HR, technology. How has being involved in so many facets of the business over 13 plus years there helped you to be the leader you are today?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. When I came on board 13 years ago, and again, I had some big company experience behind me. And at that point, the company was much smaller. We were about 250 employees. We were a $39 million company. And really, over the last 13 years, we've grown to where we are. So I've been fortunate to be in a number of different roles, everything from maintenance. I spent a good stint in operations. That's kind of where most of my background has been. But the few years prior to me taking on the CEO role, I was actually removed from, I was removed from operations. We have a excellent operator on my team right now, and he took over the operations. And I took over kind of everything but operations. So I had, that's when I got involved in driver recruiting and the marketing side and IT and safety and HR and all of those aspects. And, being an operator or believing that I'm an operator, you never want to leave and go to those areas. They're not as exciting, right? It's not where the rubber meets the road. And that's false. I mean, what I realized is being in every department that you're in, there's opportunity to make your business so much better, and you can be motivated just like you can if you're running operations or running sales. There's just opportunity to continue to make the company better and the teams better. And again, the glue for me has been, no matter where I was, everybody centers on that purpose of building a great place to work, whether you're in accounting, whether you're a driver, whether you're in operations. So I've been very fortunate to be able to see all aspects of our business prior to taking this role.
Yeah, I think it's so much more well-rounded, I think, when you have that perspective coming in. And, I mentioned that you were awarded 2023 Business Person of the Year for Green Bay, Wisconsin. The award, I know, recognizes local business leaders who demonstrate achievement in business leadership and management, or have made, significant contributions to the business environment there in Green Bay. So congratulations for that. I think that's pretty darn awesome.
I appreciate that. That's really a reflection. I know it was an award for me, but it's truly a reflection of our company and, the spot that we play in this community. And that recognition was great for paper transport.
Well, can you share maybe some of the achievements that you're most proud of with your leadership at Paper Transport? Some of the things that maybe were recognized or highlighted in some of the awards that you've been bestowed.
Yeah, it really centers around growth and innovation. So, I think the growth that we've experienced, I would imagine that's primarily been behind, some of this recognition throughout the industry. And, we actually even talked about growth when we talked about our core values. Does growth become one of our core values? And I remember having that discussion with our group, and we intentionally didn't put that in because there's times, like in this current environment, where you're not growing, and or it's growth takes a different avenue than what you traditionally think about growth. So, but bottom line, always moving forward, adding new business, diversifying your business, just presents great opportunities for our employees. It presents great opportunities for our customers, and in this case, it presents a lot of opportunities for the community in terms of continued job expansion and moving forward. The second piece I would say is, growth is a cornerstone, and the other piece is innovation. And again, when you think about innovation, people jump to tech right away, and hey, you have automation, you have these tech things, but that's a narrow view of innovation. And we've had tremendous success in innovation through technology, but also through things such as sustainability and our approach to our processes and delivering new and different solutions to customers. That's all in that innovation bucket. It's not all about technology.
Well, and I know, you've been a long supporter, and I have been a long supporter as well of the concept of driver assessment programs. But I also understand the apprehension to adopt such a program, especially when the demand for drivers has been so historically strong. But you incorporated one such program with Job Behaviors Company I'm well familiar with, and actually have had on the show before. I think you may have incorporated them a few years ago. Can you share what your motivation was in the beginning to leverage a driver assessment program early in the recruiting process?
Yeah, so we're 6 years in to partnering with Job Behaviors, and really that just comes down to how do we become the best at who we hire. And we have a different type of assessment that we've had in place for 13 years in the office space, and been just a strong proponent of using those screening tools ahead of the actual interview to understand the individual prior to them going through the interview. We, back in 2018, so I'll go back to when we jumped on board with the assessment for our drivers. It was an environment, that's where the driver market was crazy. You just couldn't get enough. Our customers were demanding more drivers, and unfortunately, through our turnover, we started to creep up, and I felt like we were turning into this typical company in trucking where it's all about, can you fill the seats, and not necessarily about the quality that you're bringing on board. So we took a step back and we said, all right, how do we approach this differently? And our approach was to go after predictive analytics. This is back in 2018. Predictive analytics was kind of really getting off the ground in terms of the buzzword. So we we partnered with a technology company to, review all of our driver data and understand, hey, what are the right attributes for a driver that's going to be safe and is going to stick with us for the long run. And we struck out. We actually just couldn't find anything consistent in our data. Maybe we didn't have enough, or maybe it just wasn't there. And at that time, I was also reviewing job behaviors. For me, it was easy to make that leap because we were already doing something similar on our office side. And taking a step back, I said, if we're looking for predictive analytics on who we should hire, what better way than to actually give them a survey, understand who they are, and identify the ones that we want, that we believe will be safe, professional, and will stick with us in the long run. So that's when we really made the leap and implemented that into our recruiting process.
Could you share, I'm curious, just what are some of the, what sort of impact has that had on your business? I can imagine it's obviously, if you've been doing it for 6 years, it's worth it's worth its weight.
Yeah, you're either all in or you're all out. I mean, you can't kind of dabble in this, or you never really see the results. And the other piece is you do have to have some faith, because some of you're taking a bit of a leap of faith. We've seen continuous improvement in the performance of our driver from a safety perspective, from an MPG perspective, and certainly just from a cultural and a professional perspective. And it's not, there's a million things that go into that. And job behaviors is one of them. The hard part is trying to pinpoint, okay, is this all a result of this one thing? And it's not, but it's certainly, you can point all of those performance issues back to who you hire to begin with, and having that assessment to make sure that you're that much better at assessing the individuals before bringing them in certainly plays a role. So, it's been evident. And I would say, again, there's the hard dollars around safety, maintenance, MPG, but the best part is just the soft spot around culture, professionalism, and the type of fleet that we have now versus what we had, 8 or 9 years ago. It's different. It's different. And that takes years to build. You don't turn it on. But over time, over 6 years of hiring into this model, we now have a fleet that I would say is as professional, safe, and efficient as any out there.
And that's exciting. And I think anybody listening to this is probably taking note of saying, they're doing something pretty special there. So that's cool. Thank you for that. And I understand that you incorporated a driver training program. And can you share, maybe a little bit about how that came about and what its effect has had on the company's success?
Yeah. So, building up our process and our hiring process, the assessment, with job behaviors allowed us to kind of take a leap into that inexperienced driver market. So for the last 3 years, we've always hired some inexperienced drivers, and we had a training program where you're out for weeks at a time with a trainer, but we decided to take a step back because it wasn't necessarily producing the results, and we felt like designing our own kind of in-house custom program, which would bring all of those inexperienced candidates, no matter where they're coming from. They all fly into Green Bay, and they go through the training right here at our corporate office in Green Bay. Half of it is in the truck, developing those fine skills around backing and slow maneuvering that you see. That's where most of the technical scrubbing needs to happen. But then the other half is spent in the classroom, and we're teaching the drivers how to interact with individuals, how to do their trip plan, how our technology works. They get a chance to meet the full team. I'll have lunch with the new drivers when they come in, and really incorporating that with our corporate environment here has been fantastic. And we've also taken the approach to, this isn't when a trainee is in the truck, the trainee is operating the truck. This isn't a team operation where we're looking to maximize miles. This is about getting this individual off the ground so that they can improve their life and have a great career as a professional truck driver. So it really centers around that individual.
You and I, we met in person at an industry event several years ago, And I've always felt that the industry, as big as it is really tight. We kind of touched on this earlier, where just how special the industry is, and and I also know that people do business with people they know and trust. How important is being active and involved in industry associations to you? Can you speak to the benefits for both PTI and for you personally?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. Before, I didn't realize this until I came to a smaller carrier, at the time, Paper Transport. And that's when I became exposed a lot more to the other carriers, the rest of the landscape. And you realize what a small world it is. And there is certainly a separation from the really good carriers, the really good suppliers, the work that you're doing out there and others. And all of a sudden you get this, it's a much smaller world of, all right, these are the innovators. These are the people that are really trying to make this industry better. So for me, it's been critical to just be involved, whether it's through the associations, through even some of the conferences that vendors put on, to build up that network of suppliers and call them competitors. But what you realize is the competitors that are at these events and want to improve their business, it's about making each other better. And again, the network that I've built up and the people I keep in touch with, you end up getting into kind of an exclusive group of individuals that are truly trying to move the business forward, not just looking out for tomorrow or next week or the month
or themselves,
yeah,
right? Or just for themselves. It's really for the betterment of the industry in general. And I say this all the time too. You build relationships that can last a lifetime.
Absolutely,
and it's pretty awesome. With a couple of minutes left, I know it's time if we could head over to the deeper dive segment, where we take a question from one of our listeners. And today's deeper dive question is brought to you by Career Now Brands. And the deeper dive question is, what can carriers do to provide better health and wellness care for their drivers? Now, before you answer that, I will say that for the last 6 months or more, I've been really passionate about this as an industry issue, especially as I got smacked right between the eyes with the stat that the average life expectancy of a CDL driver is 61 years. And that's just unacceptable, in my opinion. But I want to preface that because when this question was provided, I thought it hits me a little bit, in the heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And me as well, because it falls right into our purpose of building a great place to work. And it's about how you treat your employees. So, I'm really proud of some of the steps we've taken. I'll talk about those. But your question of what should you do, or what can a carrier do? Do something. Sitting back and complaining about it and accepting, the average age of a lifespan of a truck driver is 61 years. That's ludicrous. So the action, do something about it. And there, you can start with simple things. I think, one of the most important is, do you have an EAP program? So, unfortunately, that's kind of at the back end. That's when somebody's already hit it at a point where they really need help. But do you have those professional services? They're affordable plans? Do you have counseling available for those that need it? So we kind of started in that realm. We also provide, financial services. Unfortunately, professional drivers can make a lot of money, but oftentimes the situations that they're in and they're away from home, they end up in financial situations that they just need help. And simple things, talking to somebody who can help you with financial planning and budgeting can go a long way. What I'm really proud of, about 2 years ago, we've added to our staff, we call her Nurse Jessie. She's a wonderful individual, but her whole job is centered around reaching out to our employees and just nudging them a little bit, whether it's doing exercise programs. And she's focused on holistic health. So it's not just physical, whether it's exercise and diet, but it's also about mental well-being and financial well-being. And, that's the full picture. Because if your financial side is out of whack, odds are your mental side could be out of whack and your physical side could be out of whack. So kind of holistically attacking that has been cool. Nurse Jessie's been awesome in terms of a lot of our drivers and our office employees reach out to her. They open up to her like they wouldn't, even though they may love their driver manager. She's been awesome and just a great resource. And, you know, I don't even know the conversations she's having, but when I'm out in the field and I meet with a driver and they reference Nurse Jessie, I'm like, all right, this is working. Whether it had that impact or not, but I can tell you it's changed some lives. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, well, having somebody that is committed and dedicated to that, you know, the ambassador of, you know, that sort of a program, I think is really important. And yeah, Nurse Jessie. So if I come up to Green Bay, I'd like to meet her.
Sounds great. She's typically around. So,
well, Ben, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate the progressive and innovative work that you're doing for PTI and for the industry.
Awesome. Appreciate a lot of respect for you, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for joining me for another episode of Taking the Higher Road. Stay tuned for the next episode as I'm joined by Lindsay Trent, president and co-founder of Next Generation in Truckling. And once again, special thanks to the sponsors of this show. We really appreciate you. If you're interested in being a sponsor or joining me for an interview, please email jeremy@takingthehigherroad.com. Until next time, thank you for taking the higher road.